Welcome to chapter 10 of Doing Imago, Relationship Therapy in the Space Between. We have been going chapter by chapter through this book, and we are at chapter 10, which is a really special chapter. So I'm glad that you're here. If you want to start from the beginning, on the Facebook group, Doing Imago in the Space Between, I'll post links to previous chapters that we've covered, and you can find the playlist on YouTube and go through chapter by chapter with us. And you don't need to. You can just be here today because you have experienced therapists here who are going to be sharing their thoughts and feelings about this chapter. So, this is the Imago Therapist, Chapter 10, Facilitator of Connecting. And part of why, hi Anna, part of why
Hi.
I love this chapter so much is because I feel like it is the crux. Hi, Christopher. We'll do introductions in a second, but this is the crux of our training. And unfortunately, unfortunately, we have to keep coming back to workshops, to the basic training, to advanced trainings, to develop what Harville is inviting us to develop, which is a worldview and really our own meta theory, how it works in our lives, so that we can better facilitate dialogues without our own material interrupting the process. And he and Helen go back quite a bit to previous concepts that I'd like to keep bringing forward because they're so important. Um, so, yeah, let's do a round of your name and where you are and anything you want to share to start off.
I'll go first.
Hi, Christopher.
I'm Christopher Menard, Nashville, Tennessee, for the last couple of years. Prior to that, Central Illinois, Champaign-Urbana. And I've been wanting to drop in on this for as long as I see your emails about it. And I just got off my monthly peer consulting, Imago peer consulting group here in Nashville. And I saw your email. I'm like, I'm kind of tired, but I've been wanting to do this. So let me get back on Zoom. So here I am, happy to finally get here. Um, and uh, what? Just to clarify, what time does this meeting end at?
We go for an hour and a half.
I gotta pick up a kid in
No
15
worries.
minutes,
No
so
worries.
if
We're
it,
just glad you're
anyway,
here, and
great,
the rest will be there if you want to follow up
Any
and
kid?
listen.
great. Thanks, Michelle. My youngest, the 15-year-old, he's at band camp, so I gotta pick him up.
Okay, very important to pick him up. Otherwise, you'll have to go back to therapy at some point and talk about
Yeah,
how dad didn't pick him up.
that I wasn't there for him, right?
Well, welcome, welcome. Who would like to introduce yourself next?
I would. I'm Bonnie. Um, let's see, I'm in Cincinnati, and I did not get a chance to. I skimmed the book, reading the first 5 chapters
Hmm.
very thoroughly. I did not do that with chapter 10, so I'm looking forward to highlighting and preparing my chapter for when I read it personally. And it's very interesting that Michelle would say it's. As she sees it, the crux of our work. And of course it is, because it's about us being as clear and clean as we can be to help them manifest whatever they need to do, not bounce off of us.
Hmm.
Um, I want to know who's going to the conference, and then I guess that's all.
All right, good, good. So wonderful. Yes, I will be there.
Yeah,
And I'll look
cool.
for you. And if you're not there physically, you're there in spirit with us.
Absolutely.
Hmm. Thank you, Bonnie.
Mm.
Leslie, when we raised our hands, Zoom put you as raising your hand. So would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, well, I was saying I'm going to be at the conference,
I
but
know.
no,
Zoom didn't know.
it automatically raised my hand and left it there. That's so funny. Oh gosh. So yeah, my name's Leslie Sullivan. I am in State College, Pennsylvania, the home of Pennsylvania State University main campus, and otherwise known as Happy Valley. So here I am.
Thank you, Leslie. Always good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Michael, you want to go
My name,
next?
my name is Michael. I'm in Monterey Bay, California. I've literally walked in the door from the last 30 hours of traveling from India,
Mm,
and I did not. I don't remember that My bookmark of where I am is past this chapter, but I don't remember reading this at all. So I'm excited to touch base with it and look forward to the conversation.
thank you, Michael. It's always good to have you here.
Michael, can I ask what your last name is?
Kaufman, Kaufman.
Thanks.
And just for clarification purposes, I think it's important for you to know that I am not an Imago therapist. I'm a friend of the family. I've been involved with Imago theory and therapy for 30 or 40 years. I don't know.
Cool. How cool.
I
Well, I'll go
agree,
next since
Anna.
I'm jumping in here.
Please.
And thank you for your last name and for sharing that. So my name is Anna Gold. I'm in Ontario, Canada. I'm not coming to the conference. I'm not this time.
Good
Uh,
for you, Canada.
Yeah, I don't feel like that's a good call at this time for so many reasons. But I hope you all enjoy being together, and I will miss being there for sure. Um, and um, I am not this far in the book, but I keep not coming because I'm not wherever Michelle you get to, and I'm like, forget it. I'll just come, and then I get to be part of it. I learn kinesthetically. Why am I avoiding it? Because I didn't do my homework. So forget it. I'll do my homework later or not, and I'll learn from the conversation, wisdom,
100%.
the wisdom of others. And my
Mm,
plate is super, super, super overloaded. Not
mhm.
unusually, but my husband and I run Imago retreats, and Michelle knows that well, as have Michelle and Stephen, and we are working our little butts off over here in Canada, trying to make it a success.
Yes, and you are. And when's your next one?
We just had a very successful one in Northern Ontario. We've added another date for that one, which is at a beautiful retreat center in March. And then we're in Portugal for a 5-day Imago retreat with a California couple who are Imago therapist and partner who are stand-up comedians, and they've worked with us before. So we are doing Imago and comedy, and we're going to
Nice.
have a blast. So
Oh,
please, and it's so reasonably
and what
priced.
are the dates?
That one is April 14th to 19th, 5 nights,
Okay,
5 days on the coast of southern Portugal,
amazing.
not in the busy area, all inclusive. It's going to be a blast.
Oh, please,
We
please,
have
yes.
people
Thank
signing
you.
up already. We only have room for 9 couples, so we have room for six more.
Great. Thank you, Anna, and thank you for your and
Thank you
Tim's
for letting
work.
me say that. And I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, I'm so excited you're here too. You look beautiful.
Thank you. You too. I haven't seen you in forever.
I
Okay.
know, I
Do our
know.
connection.
Maybe
Lovely.
maybe I have to figure out how to go on one of your
Oh
retreats
my
soon.
God, come. This one's going to be so much fun.
I know I am
I love
having
Portugal.
FOMO big time. Steve, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, yeah, I'll follow that because I too have been meaning to come to these, and I need to read, and I need to stop making an excuse and just show up. So, and then yeah, because this book has been sitting on my shelf over here for like a year or two or something like that. And then wow, that those retreats sound awesome, Anna. Holy
Thanks,
crap.
Steve.
Um,
Where are you based, Steve?
I am in Austin and Austin, Texas, and my wife and I run couples workshops every other month, and yeah, just came out of a awesome clinical training and workshop thing assisting with Michelle in San Antonio.
Oh,
So
yay, you did that.
Wow.
So fun.
yeah,
Yeah, Steve is one of the team members that I lean on. He and Emily are so wonderful, and I feel really grateful. So
Yeah.
let's dive in. I will share some of why I think this is such an important chapter, and then we'll hear from you about your experience. Um, so, so first, there's a lot of bad news in this chapter. I think it's good news if you can embrace it and free yourself from needing to be an expert. But if you are really attached to having answers and knowing exactly what to do, The bad news is you have no idea what to do, and that is the right place to be. So it says here, well, I'll just read the first paragraph. We therapists have been trained to help our clients understand their predicament and achieve their goals without imposition of our assumptions and wishes, only our expertise. The prime directive is the facilitation of our clients' natural progress towards their objectives, which they have been unable to sustain on their own. But the reality is that we do not see our clients objectively, nor do our clients see themselves accurately. So, then they go on to talk about how important it is to understand the lens through which we see the couple. Are we like the Newtonian atom? This is in the second paragraph. That is uncuttable and impermeable. Or like the quantum in constant change with infinite potential. So obviously it's both. It's both and. The quantum itself says it's both and. But can we believe that we are in front of two people who have infinite potential? And if not, why? What about our history, our worldview, our belief makes it challenging for us to see that they have infinite potential? So do we believe that there is a fixed nature to each person? And how fixed? How fixed is it? Is what we are based on what we do? Or is what we do based upon what we are? So these are really great questions, questions that I would invite my trainees not to answer, but to hold, just to wonder, are these behaviors who they are, or are they expressing who they are? Is change possible? How will they consider changing behaviors? What will it cost them to change behaviors? How does their partner unconsciously support the same behaviors they hate? To just hold these questions and not know. But of course, everything in our training tells us we should know. So we have to hold the tension there. So what is your theory of human nature and your theory of change? In this vein, we tend to see our clients through some sort of diagnostic lens. We may get some comfort, perhaps confidence, in presuming to know what we are looking at and the problem to be solved. But as experience, this isn't reading, but just as experienced Imago practitioners, we have to release that desire to feel confident, to know, to define a problem, because that actually will prevent the couple from discovering their own answers. But I like that Harville and Helen are inviting the therapist to wonder and to examine this. This is on the top of page 227, the first full paragraph. While it may seem abstract and irrelevant, meta theory or worldview is the most concrete aspect of clinical work because it determines our theory about people, whether it be that they are what they do or that there is a nature behind what they do that can be discovered. It also guides our interactions with them and the outcomes we anticipate or get. How we position them in our office. Do they sit side by side on a couch or face each other in separate chairs? What questions we ask them about their situation, whether we take a waiting, agentive, or responsive stance, how we answer their questions or whether we answer them, and our ultimate assessment of their progress with us. But we do not and cannot see what is really there. So, any response to what we're saying?
I would just wonder what basic clinical training of Imago would look like if this even beginning of the chapter uh, was what gets pushed hard, because I don't think the way any therapist has been trained seems to start with that.
When you say any therapist, you mean any therapist, like
I
broad.
mean, oh, sure, I'm making
Yeah, like
comparing,
graduate school training, training to use a DSM, train to
right?
diagnose, write up treatment plans.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so oftentimes the person coming in without all that, maybe even a student or, is much more open to this idea because it resonates as deeply true and it doesn't contradict all their training. But Steve knows I do push this hard.
Oh,
I
Yeah,
think. I don't know what your experience is.
I mean, it was gonna be a cheeky response, but I was like, I mean, yeah, like Michelle Bowles training would be good, and then
ah,
that'd be helpful. And then also just to add to that it's I don't know, there's something about like the uh, it's hard to kind of like advertise and put this out there and people understand what it means. Like that's what
I
I
would
feel
think so.
like it's and I mean, gosh, it probably took me about 5 or 6 years to maybe kind of sort of start to understand, like the concept of, oh, these are important questions to hold, and maybe that's okay. Just hold them.
In the
Hmm.
handful of therapists that are friends of mine that I engage in conversation about the space between, there is reactivity often, and or I butt up against things that, I'm not that familiar with some of the things that Harvo, some of the names of the shoulders that Imago are built on. I'm not that familiar with them, but a lot of therapists fall back on those names and on those theories
Hmm.
in the conversations that I have with them.
Hmm.
That dialogue isn't that new, or the mirroring isn't, that's always, so and so did that already, and
Yeah.
but trying to move to the importance of the space between the and it's not a diagnostic of me or you, but the helping create a space that allows for that infinite possibility that Michelle, that you were talking about. That's a I find that to be a harder conversation with the
Hmm.
therapist that I know.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that you're bringing that in, Michael, because we can't just tell. We have to show, let people have an experience, and then get them to wonder about that experience. My trainees last week were saying, "This is witchcraft. What's going on? How did you get me to have these feelings?" Um, so yeah, it has to be experienced, and people can't just watch videos to understand. You can understand a lot, but it's not the same as really exploring your own mind and the stories your mind makes up, and then wondering how that impacts your ability to see what is really there. Which, I mean, I like being told it's impossible. Your brain can't know. So then I can just
But you
stay
can
and wonder.
experience.
I can stay and wonder. I wonder.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think
Um,
that the way that Imago training, and I'm sure this is what you're getting at, Michelle, that the training is so experiential.
Hmm.
For me, that was the thing that hooked me from the beginning, was that I could feel what I was learning as I was learning it. And I've never been in any other training that does that so well.
Hmm.
Um, so then you can feel yourself going through the layers. You can feel yourself, and couples, when we work with them, it's like using sand as some kind of filter, and then there's another below it. What's there? And then what's there? And then what's
Yeah.
there?
Yeah. So then we're learning, we're feeling, we're experiencing, and then we can come back up to what we think about it. So I was saying a lot in the train last week, that the mind is supposed to be the servant of the heart. But often we're trained to make the mind the master, and the heart gets to maybe get drug along. And it does take many layers to get to the heart, to get past all our thoughts and stories. I'm going to keep reading and then keep listening to your reactions. Like the quantum observer effect, which he does go into in previous chapters and notes here, which is that the observer impacts the field. So we impact the couple, and what we believe impacts the couple, like literally impacts what's unfolding. What shows itself to us depends on how we look. We look at everything through an interpretive filter. While we cannot change that propensity of our minds, and he does go into the neurobiology of that in previous chapters, we can know that we have it. We can know that we have this interpretive filter and what our perspective is. And we have in our view a professional and moral responsibility to do so. So I had never heard that before entering Imago, that I had an interpretive filter and that it was my responsibility to know what it was and to be curious about it. That's really a big challenge.
How is that different than just being taught countertransference?
Well, I think for me personally, because I believe in the power of countertransference, I think it's so critical. It's built into our supervision process. It's important to wonder if what the therapist's experience is actually from the field, but to also wonder if what the field is experiencing is from me, right? To wonder both ways, which is transference and countertransference. And I was taught it, like the definition, but I wasn't really taught to use it. And I think this is what he is inviting us to wonder about.
Thanks.
Does that help?
Very much.
Yeah.
And then maybe also to wonder if that's real either.
Yeah. We can't know. It could be another interpretation. Yeah. And practically, if something is not working, we cannot change it unless we understand why we are doing what we think we are doing. So I love that this just introduces the power of staying curious.
Well, and of having intention
Yes, intention.
drive us instead of our subconscious unknown reactions in ourselves, I think.
Yes, thank you, Leslie. Yeah, our intentions impact the field. They impact our strategies, our interventions. Do we come in here? Do we stay back? All of that is built into the intention. And I'm sure you've been there where you invite the couple to have an intention, and then 5 minutes later it's out the window.
Yeah.
Because we want to be better than we can be, that we're ready to be yet. So it's both like holding the intention and then coming back to it again and again without shame, without judgment, just like, of course, like we all tend towards reactivity. We're wired that way. Yeah.
Something you said earlier, that I experience with couples over and over and over again, especially in the first 3 sessions, is like when if I am in that place where I'm able to just hold the space, hold the discomfort, hold the contradictions, all of it, And I guess I'm just thinking that I'm doing that too, possibly. I don't know. But when I feel like when it just feels like I'm doing that and I'm just bringing this new experience to them of dialogue, it is always amazing to me how it is unpredictable which person is going to cry all of a sudden over
Mm-hmm.
something that seems really not that deep to me.
Mm-hmm.
To
Mm-hmm.
them, they're having this incredible uh, awareness of themselves, or
Mm-hmm.
or which thing is going to have that impact is
Mm-hmm.
just, to me, the wonder and the witchcraft of it, which isn't actually me being a witch.
No, I said I'd like to call it Godcraft or something else, please. But
But it's really just
it's magic.
but
Magic is a great word. Magic is a great word.
but
Mm-hmm.
it's really just staying in the dialogue.
Yes, and you staying present
Yeah,
and in wonder, which is actually a very tall order,
yeah.
Yeah.
because we have to battle our brain and all our stories.
And our agenda, our own unconscious agenda.
Absolutely. I want to be the savior. I want to
Mhm.
protect one from the other. All these agendas. And again, this is just inviting us become aware of that. Become aware of where it started, where it got reinforced, and be willing to wonder, am I ready to give it up? Am I ready to stay out of the field and just trying to keep the energy between them? But did I eat enough? Did I sleep well? Do I have a lot of stressors? All those things tend to interfere with my ability to just be present and believe in the infinite potential. And especially in my own marriage, to see my husband as being full of infinite potential is, it's a tall order. And it's one I have to keep coming back to every day, saying, no, that's your job, Michelle. That is what you signed up for, is to love him and not criticize and not judge. And that's, the most humbling walk for me.
Me.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for joining me, Anna.
It's true.
Send prayers, receive it. Um,
Well, I
so
laugh. I've laughed over the years because if I see a couple who are really struggling, and they're not hearing each other and there's no compassion and then I used to come home and look at Tim and say, "Oh my God, I'm so grateful for you," and I could love him up. And then I'd see a couple who were like, just really hearing each other with the most deep, heartfelt empathy. And I'd come home and say, why? Why are you not like that? Why are we not doing that? And it was like this, and for years it was sort of this reaction. And he'd say, I know who you saw today.
it's true. It's so true. Yes, I relate. I
Yeah,
relate. It took me a
yeah,
long
just,
time.
yeah.
So I want to go to the next paragraph. It's so beautiful. And starting to get back into some of the material covered earlier in the book, but I don't know, somehow when there's like a summary, like in the summary step we use in the dialogue, when there's a nice summary, it locks into my brain differently. So he and Helen had introduced symbiotic consciousness before and defined it, but here I just thought they really just nailed it. And they're comparing it to the field theory and naive realism and some other concepts from outside of Imago. Um, but basically, they assert that symbiosis, which is a radically egocentric bias, has been identified as a universal filter through which all things pass. So, I mean, right there, you could write a whole book on that. That we can't help but be symbiotic. We don't have much choice. We have an ego, and it impacts how we filter things, interpret things, and so we know it's going to pass through that. Um, So these scholars contend that our minds interpret rather than objectively observe what we see. So kind of reiterating that. In Imago, we see a similarity or perhaps an identity between naive realism and symbiotic consciousness. So he's going to go in, they're going to go into symbiotic consciousness. This is at the bottom of page 227. So symbiotic consciousness was created by ruptured connecting in childhood, which triggered the pain of anxiety that produced self-absorption. So we have a rupture, we're filled with anxiety, and that creates this self-absorption, like pain and self-absorption about the pain, with consequent loss of otherness. So now we're absorbed in our pain and we forget that there are other humans. And with the loss of empathy, resulting in objectification, which I would argue is the crux of diagnosis. Is objectification and the tendency towards judgmental predication without experiencing the isolation of experience from what is external to oneself. So basically separating us from being aware of our own experience. So this happens, it begins in childhood, and we have many diagnoses to describe self-absorption in pain and objectification and lack of empathy and lack of connection. The emotional pain of disconnection that produces the symbiotic state amplifies our natural human tendency to believe that what we see is there. So I think this is really important to understand. I am self-absorbed in my own history, my own pain. Therefore, I feel more comfortable if I can see this other person as a diagnosis in this certain way, and basically avoid my own emotional experiences by that objectification of them. And then believe it, basically. Believe, like, what if I tell myself a story, this person will never change, it's toxic, narcissist, blah, blah, blah. Well, now that's all I'll see because I'm programming my brain to see that. But I'm also bringing that into the field, reinforcing it, and looking for a confirmation. Anything you want to share about that? I see nodding heads like, oh, yes, okay, yeah. But I mean,
Well, what you just said, uh, I anyway, it teased out easily for me. You're referring to the field of the three of us,
yes,
but I quickly went to my own marriage, and it's like,
yeah,
oh, oh yeah, right.
yes,
Oh yeah, right.
absolutely. It's even
Our field.
becomes what I believe him to be.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. So I want to limit his infinite potential by labeling, othering.
Right.
Self-righteousness feels so good. Like, making him a problem. But
Someone's got
this,
to be right.
right, but this brings us back to, okay, I'm actually creating the very situation that I don't want unconsciously.
And it seems to me like the process of dialogue, when it's not like a flat dialogue, when people are actually
Inserting their interpretations.
yeah, when people are actually consciously aware of making an effort to cross the bridge into the other world, and everything slows down and they listen in a new way to the other. That is where the hope of this shift occurs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I see when I'm able to just do that.
Yes.
And not try to like rewrite the script.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, what you're pointing
Take
to,
over. Yeah.
yeah, what you're pointing to, Leslie, is when you are grounded and present, then you can trust that process.
Yes.
But as soon as anxiety comes in, we know that's not just the anxiety of the moment, it's the anxiety of the original symbiotic consciousness, the ruptures
Yeah.
that created the anxiety in the first place, that like, I better be a good therapist or I won't be loved. I better make a difference or they won't come back. Like, you know, the anxiety is always what we're battling. Yeah. Yeah, Anna.
I've been thinking about this lately, this idea that, I mean, really lately, like the last few days. When I listen to what you're saying, Michelle, well, and Leslie and everybody, this we know, of course, that symbiosis precludes, if you stay in it, differentiation.
Yes.
And the thing about dialogue is that if we can trust that the other, whoever the other person is, the second person, will be graced, granted with the opportunity to have their expression of self,
Mm-hmm.
of whatever's going on, then, and they really learn to trust that,
Mm-hmm.
then the opportunity to listen deeply. And the thought that keeps coming into my head is get themselves out of the way of the
Yeah.
listening, which is the hardest thing to practice and teach.
Mm-hmm.
Then they can do it fully if
Mm-hmm.
they know they're also going to get a chance to be heard fully. I know that's the basis. I know that I'm repeating it, but there's something
Oh,
about that that has been very a shift for me in terms of like, right? So Tim, just as a quick example, he told me a story this morning, the most basic story. And of course, I want him to be the one to change for sure. But he told me this story, and I could hear my response, which was a request for empathy on his part. He was saying he was in a store, someone stole something, he witnessed it, but he missed it. And when the store came out, he felt some responsibility. Like, how did I not? Where was my awareness in that moment that that guy left with that thing and she was upset? And I moved right into my own stuff.
mm-hmm.
Well, it's good you didn't intervene. You don't know what might have happened, like all my protective stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I caught myself and thought, what would happen right now if I got myself out of the way, fully trusting that he would hear my anxiety about it later?
Mm-hmm.
And then I was able to say, that must have been really distressing for you. Like if I put myself in your shoes, you must have felt terrible for that woman. If only you had been a little bit more on the ball. No wonder you felt that way. Like I went into full, and it felt so different for me. Um, and I see that as a therapist, that same impulse, right? So I'm
Mm-hmm.
hearing the symbiosis as attached to the anxiety, as you say, of
Yeah.
trying to manage an outcome that is really not our business to manage.
Mm-hmm.
And I just got this piece about how do we teach and how do we experience getting ourselves out of the way? And the answer, of course, is dialogue, because if I can empathize fully with him, then he in turn will then be able to hear my anxiety about, and still, this is how I would feel should that other situation have occurred. I
Yeah.
don't know, just feel
Beautiful. I
different.
love that you're giving us a really concrete, real life example, because the more we can use it in our daily lives, the better we can hold the couple that can't yet. And we can just trust. Just
It's trust. It's
keep
about trust.
trying. You're doing great. You're doing more than many couples can. And just know that it takes a long time. It takes a long time. Yeah. Anyone else want to share anything about just such rich? Thank you all for sharing.
I want to bring up something from this morning with a couple. I was using the term contact content, and that we, in this new paradigm, we're looking for that relational way of being with each other as opposed to whatever, and talked about what it's going to take. and we won't be able to do it all the time, and et cetera, but it truly will change us. And so I finished that wonderful, wonderful thing I said to them, and should have been there. Uh, and and the fella said, uh, "Yeah, but what do we do because she's always late?"
Yeah.
And I realized that this is second session. I realized that that was a big push from him in the beginning, and I can tell I made it my duty in these sessions to rid him of that. And it's
Hmm.
like, oh my God, it just fell back so far. And so that was a trigger for me in my own story.
Yeah,
So
but
it
makes
was real
so much
helpful.
sense, Bonnie. We can all relate. Can relate. Yeah. I have to say that trusting the dialogue for other couples came way before trusting it for myself. And no matter how many transformations I saw in front of me, I still reverted back to trying to manage outcomes. And like you were saying, Anna and you, Bonnie, like, of course. And we're trained to do that from the time we're very, very little. That's the assignment to get the A is to deliver an outcome. So, we're trying to shed ourselves of such powerful programming and our couples too. Um, okay, I'm going to keep going. There's so much here. Um, so on page 228, they start to get into phenomenology, which is that everything we experience is unknowable. We cannot not have our assumptions. Our minds automatically connect the dots of data we believe we are observing and weaves them into models of reality without our active participation. Like we just collect the data, believe we're observing something, and believe our conclusion. And that's because we don't know that we're constantly in an interpretation, filtering everything through a symbiotic lens. So we're being invited to wonder about that. Um, the structure of our brain and the quality of our experience filter what we see in such a way that what is, which is in quotation marks, what is unavailable to us. And paradoxically, our client's actual experience is unavailable to them directly. Um, perception, observation slash perception is not only interpretive, but also impacts the behavior of what is observed and how what is observed shows itself to us. So not only are we dealing with this filter, but that filter is impacting what's actually happening. It's influencing the space. So if our nervous system starts to get reactive and anxious, that's affecting the space between the couple, whether we want it to or not, no matter how clinical we want to believe we're being. We have to stay grounded in knowing there's a process, or otherwise our anxiety is filtering and affecting what we're seeing. So, I mean, we're getting into, quantum, which is pretty abstract, but there've been times when I'm sitting in front of a couple and I'm like, can we jump into a different reality, please? Can I please have a parallel reality where this couple has a breakthrough right now and starts to see each other and take ownership and move forward to what's possible? Like sometimes I'm in there asking, can we just jump into a different reality? And I swear it works. I swear it does. But we'll never know. Could just be my story. Um, But then they go on to add to complicate things a bit more. Like, okay, not enough yet. It turns out, according to the neurosciences, that memory itself is a construction. So we're working with their memory networks, but those aren't even accurate. Their stories might be mostly accurate, but it's mostly hard to tell, right? And so then I put a little star here at the end of this section. Given all of this, it behooves us, such a great word, behooves us to check our perceptions and be humble with our assertions regarding the truth, in parentheses, and to invite our clients to be tentative in what they believe about their partners and even about themselves, and to be tentative in what we believe about them. They may unconsciously oblige us by becoming what we see, becoming as we see them, or may sense the frame we put them in and resist us or fire us. I was like, okay, Harville, just lay that down. Giving us his best advice, might behoove you to wonder what exactly is going on. So then they go on to talk about discovering our own meta theory. And this is on page 229. They lay it out, 4 steps, 4 things to consider. 1, what you believe about the nature of the universe. The second is reflect on what you believe about human nature. Third is to reflect on your view of the source and cause of human suffering, which is operative in your theory of why relationships fall apart. And 4, what constitutes a thriving relationship and how is it created, since that is what you are up to. So those are big things to think about, right? Those are like pretty huge things to wonder about. And most of us, they acknowledge, most of us don't really spend much time wondering about these things. And then they go through each of these elements and dive into both different ways, different therapies or therapists without naming names, but how they may perceive the answers to these questions. And then he does say this is what Imago believes or suggests as of today. So in Imago therapy, the nature of the universe is we are conscious participants in a conscious universe in which everything is interacting and connecting with everything all the way up and all the way down. This means that our interactions impact the field and the interactions of others impact us, since we are all in the field and it is all in us. So the isolation and determinism of the materialistic universe of Newton has been replaced with choice and responsiveness. His lifeless universe has been replaced with a universe that is a conscious organism. So you can consider that and wonder about that. But of course, everything like from pumping gas to paying a bill is in the Newtonian universe, right? So it's both and. It's not that we're saying that's not real. Being late, that's a real thing. And we're inviting people into the whole field, what the story I make up and what I would want and how I could be different that might help and what I would need to believe to do that. And, getting into moving them forward into what's possible and not just the story. And then what do you believe about the nature of human nature? Are people essentially benign, having good intentions while engaging in bad behavior? Or are they defined by their bad behavior or good behavior? Does that apply to everyone or not? Can couples change and grow? And so what we believe about these and similar topics, like it or not, will profoundly influence how we go about working with couples. What we see is what they get. I was like, oh, I mean, the courage to write this stuff, Harville and Helen. And then why do couples fight and relationships fall apart? I love this section. I think it's so critical for us to explore our own stories here. our own history of couples that fell apart in previous generations around us, our own relationships, and trying to understand, well, what happens? What is it? So they go through some of the ways that different therapists might see or pay attention to different things. And the way I would boil it down is that we can pay attention to what's going well, or we can pay attention to what's not going well. But I would say that both of those are Newtonian because it's only working with what is right now. So until we pull them into what is possible, what is the potential of the good and the struggles and the challenges, we're kind of stuck, right? I mean, we can feel that. It's like, okay, great. We talked about everything that's going well, but she's still late, you know, or we talked about all the reasons why she's late, but she's still late and I'm still unhappy about it, right? And so I love that he's laying this out. Like, um, and he does, I don't really, they don't really say what I just said, but that is my interpretation of that. Uh, they're both good strategies, but they actually don't help the couple transform. We can go back into their past, we can unpack why they do this, why the stories are there, but ultimately, if we don't pull them into the potential, we just the therapy feels lifeless to me. Yeah, Anna.
I'm just so aware of long-term couples, well, long-term being, let's say 5 years and 10,
Mhm,
10 years and longer,
mhm,
who have a history of what you might call relational trauma, in that it's just the
mhm,
patterning, the negative patterning, negative patterning, negative
mhm,
patterning, with lots of beauty in there, perhaps scattered in.
mhm.
We could we can offer, we can hold what you're talking about, what they're talking about, what you're helping us understand that they're talking about. And that brain training resentment piece
Mhm,
has to be addressed, Newtonian or otherwise. Like, it is a lot, when you talk about stuck, it is stuck.
mhm.
So if you're late and you're late and you're late and you're late, thank you, Bonnie. Apparently that's the one we're going to work with. It's great. If you're late, everybody's got it. If you're late and you're late and you're late and you're late, and you see all this potential, and oh, we have these loving moments and we're connected, but oh my God, you're late again. And then the brain goes right to how? How can you,
Yeah.
even through dialogue,
Yes.
you can have the understanding, the empathy, the compassion, the awareness, the disrespect dialogue, all the pieces, but something has to be done with that feeling of being unattended to
Mhm.
chronically.
Yes. Yes. I agree. And
And
to
I'm not
just,
always sure what it is.
well,
Like,
to both and, when we go to the BCR around that, and we set up the BCR not as just a giving experiment. Will you give me the goods? You know, will you give them up? Will you show up on time? Right? But it's a giving and receiving
mhm,
experiment between the two of us. How
mhm,
can we create something different? Could I stop telling my stories about what it means when you're late? Could I give that up? You know, like, and it's not just a will I get the goods, you know, but it's like, no, let's really try to understand what is happening between us
mhm,
for our that the conflict is growth trying to happen, but the growth might not be in you being on time. The growth might actually be in me giving up control
mhm.
and the stories and the resentments. So like I did a demo, gosh, Steve was there. It was just magical and I wish I'd recorded it
Oh, yeah.
because the couple came in, they had all that resentment. They had a lot of water under the bridge. But I said, look, let's just envision next week. What is possible next week?
Mhm,
And when there is hope, the resentment does have to move to the back a little bit. When there is like, my needs are getting met right now, you're showing up differently, I can show up differently, I have some self-responsibility in what keeps getting co-created. The resentment's still there, but it's not as big. it's so big because I don't have the other. I don't have any hope. So it's like it's not going to cancel out the resentment, but it's like the sun's still there even though it's storming outside. But if I'm aware that it's there and I'm aware it can come back, I don't have to be quite as miserable in the storm that we're in. So, yes, yes, yes. We can't just skip over that, right? We can't. We can't just force them into something different, but we can invite them to consider, you know, and if you were on time, how I might be different and what I might do to sabotage you showing up on time and what I need from you to be able to be more chill on the time, Um, all of these things are in that particular BCR dialogue that I think when a couple is ready for it is magic. If we if they don't understand all the pieces of it yet, then it just becomes a setup for failure. And we've all seen that goes terrible because, yeah, now it's confirmed. I thought maybe you're late because you don't value me, but now it's confirmed that you are just like so and so and so and so.
I
Yeah.
think it's important as a non-therapist, what you're bringing up, at least from my perspective, the BCR focuses on the behavior change, not on the receiver's transformation. And the thing that you're bringing up, that the real transformation may not be that the person is on
Absolutely.
time for a week or
That's
for a
right.
day or for however long, but me giving up my reactivity to the lateness or what have you. I I haven't seen or heard much about that.
I agree. I
Yeah,
agree.
we
And
do
actually, we
have a
started.
course. We have a course called Turbocharge Your BCR where we go into this because I think it's really critical the position that we put the couple in from the beginning, that it's an experiment about giving and receiving. Um, and I think as therapists, if we are unconsciously in a rescuer role and we unconsciously believe it's our responsibility to get that person to be on time, if we collude in that, then you got two people trying to get one person to change versus helping the couple understand what is the growth trying to happen in this conflict. Because we know the universe is very smart. And if we get the lateness to stop, it'll show up, the I'm not worthy will show up in a different place, in
Mm.
a different way. So we have to get the couple to understand there's an unmet need and you both probably have it. Yeah, Anna.
So I think what I hear Michael saying, and Michelle, I took your turbocharge at the last conference, and I may have forgotten this, so I own it if I forgot it. And it relates, I think, to what you're saying, Michael, which is, and I love this idea that the BCR is a two-sided dialogue,
Yes.
but it is not written as one,
Well, the
as I
old
have it.
way is not written, and
Ah,
then they changed it, and then they went back. So I
right.
used the one from like version 4 of the workbook or something.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
need another copy of that because
I'll
when
send
Kim and
it.
I just ran our retreat up north, we talked about this with this robust group of couples that it really requires the full dialogue on two sides and then the
Yes.
matching of the BCRs, which we don't have time for even in a retreat, although we might in future retreats. And I don't have a template for that. And I didn't
Okay.
realize I've lost, I don't even remember
Yeah.
that from the turbocharge. I'm
I'd
excited.
appreciate it too.
Yes, and it's also in the new book of dialogues. The full
Oh, great.
version is in there.
Uh,
Um,
Which isn't out yet, right?
it should be out like within the week, and it will be at the conference. I'll have a
Amazing. Well,
copy.
I'm not going to be there. I
But
want you to send me one.
I will for sure. And you can download it from my website and all that.
Okay.
Like I'll make it available once it's like official. It's kind of in
Okay.
this pre-official thing. But I was just going to share this quote that I posted on the Facebook group. This is from chapter 6, and I reread it last night because I was like, why did I write ha 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 in the margins? Um, when our partner fails, as they inevitably do, to give us what our caretakers didn't and couldn't, We rally our defenses and our best practice strategies to persuade our partners to hand over the goods. The unfortunate joke, however, is that our partner couldn't give us what we're demanding, even if they wanted to, which they probably do, because they don't have it to give, nor do we. So, like, the thing with being late is like, yeah, maybe I'm on time, but what is it that we're really trying to get here? And
Exactly.
knowing that both of us do not have that need met, and so we can't give it to each other yet. Though, although contrary to all logic, as is much of our behavior, when this challenge recurs, we are geared towards responding in whatever ways that guarantee the worst possible response from our partner. So, what I love about the BCR, which is a very advanced dialogue, and absolutely share with you what I have. And like I said, it's in version 4, I think, of the manual, is that it's a setup. It's all a setup. And if we don't team up, like you said, and if we don't do the BCR both way and look at how they match, we won't see how we both have lost parts that make meeting the unmet need very difficult. And that we both have that experience of like, well, I can't give you that. I don't have it to give. And you can't give me this, and you don't have it to give. But we can team up on this pattern and
And
stop
we
just
can develop,
reliving it.
and we can get out of the way to express the empathy that we understand the impact of us not having it on our partner.
Yes.
And that's been missing. Like somehow that's this piece that
I
I don't
love
know,
it. I
like my
love
hyper
it.
focus right now. I'm sure I'll figure something out about it,
Well,
but
but this is why we have to keep coming back to the book, to the workshops, the material, because it unfolds in this quantum way where we're different this time when we hear it, right? There's something new for us that we're more available to hear it. So,
I think Leslie was trying
yeah,
to.
Leslie, come on in.
Yeah. So I love this conversation, and Michelle, I'd love to have that too. So if you're sending it
I
off,
absolutely send it to you.
yeah. So and Michael's also saying yes, me too. But I think I love this. I love what y'all are saying, and I agree, Michelle, with if we don't give them the understanding of each piece before we get there, it is a setup to fail. And I think that for myself, the thing that impacted me the most and gave me that hope that even though things, didn't just get fixed, um,
I have
uh,
to book club.
on either side, because I would feel bad when I just kept being late. I'm a late person. I was late today, and I'm just always late. And um the and my husband is a good Marine, and that frustrates the crap out of him.
Hmm.
And but my point is, I remember I did my training with Nedra, and she really goes into a lot this idea of stretching pretty early
Hmm.
in the game. And that is what changed it for me, because
Hmm.
I got to see, and I especially love that in the singles workshop, because, well, I'm
Hmm.
not just a singles workshop, but so
Yeah,
because we
stretching
go
is
into
critical.
this deeply in that workshop, the keeping workshop, about this idea of stretching and what's in it for me, to look at me and what
Hmm.
what that element that I can change, that influences but doesn't necessarily entirely change the situation, but it
Exactly.
influences the situation
Yeah.
in a more positive way for me. But then the outcome is I am growing my own lost parts. And that whole thing about lost parts and lost functions is so core to this conversation
Yes, it
we're having
is.
right now.
Yes,
And so I really dig into those three things a whole lot, way before I try to.
exactly. If they don't get that before the BCR, then it's just really painful and frustrating. but when they can be curious. And I would just add that the stretching is in changing our behavior and moving into lost parts, but also a lost part can be empathy. A lost part can be receiving. A lost part can be letting ourselves be loved. So the stretch is receiving and the stretch is giving. It's, and I think that's just the tweak that we're thinking about right in here is just, yeah.
And for me, Michelle, this whole thing about empathy, because like I have a couple right now where one of them's a really successful surgeon and he really feels not empathetic a lot.
Yeah, well, that would make
Yeah,
sense. Can't
absolutely.
really cut into somebody if you're feeling too
Right.
much
But his
empathy.
father was also that.
Yeah,
Like, so the environment of his childhood was just that. And
yeah,
he adjusted to it and thrived in it, right?
yeah,
And he won big time. So like there's a lot of like reason to stay that way.
yes.
But it's really impacted his relational trajectory in a big way. Of course, it's anti-relationship. Um, but the I I focus more on the validation piece with him because
Yeah,
I think without that, you can't
yes,
get to the empathy.
exactly. All these parts have to work together. That's why our training is 12 days and supervision and ongoing involvement with the community because they have to all work together and each part has its own function. We did a workshop and a couple people didn't do the parent-child dialogue. And when they got to the BCR, it blew up because that is where you metabolize a lot of the energy. And so if they don't metabolize it in that dialogue, then the BCR has too much energy. So, understanding all these parts go together. And I love how you're being very strategic because you can't force somebody to embrace empathy when it was a survival technique, right? So, yeah, beautiful.
And
And I love that we have real examples. Who
I,
is, yeah,
yeah,
Steve.
I would like to say there's a quote that I love from Alan Watts, and it blew me away like when I first read it like 20 years ago or something like that. And it's the problem and the solution are the same thing. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? And what we're talking about right here, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is really reinforcing that idea because it's like, if we take the example of, okay, they're late all the time. What do we do about it? In my mind, I'm like, okay, if you're asking what do we do about it, means we must not understand the problem yet. And so once you work with these dialogues to understand, then either the solution presents itself naturally or the problem just dissolves. And so it's just such like a nice supportive quote for this. And
Oh, I love that.
yeah.
I just read something like that, Steve, in this chapter. I don't I, I don't know where it is yet. But but yeah, that's the irony is that when we don't problem solve and we just dialogue,
Hmm.
that um yeah, and that the problem is part of the solution. Conflict is growth trying to happen. So I love that quote.
Oh, it might be actually on 227 here. Practically, if something is not working, we cannot change it unless we understand why we are doing what we think we are doing. Maybe that's the one.
Mm.
Yes, but there's also something in here where they talk about, oh, here. Okay, so on page 232, what is a thriving relationship? In Imago, a thriving relationship is safe enough for each partner to drop their defenses and become vulnerable so they can restore connecting. So to sustain connecting or restored if it's ruptured again, they have a process called Imago dialogue to restore and sustain connecting. But then they say that is all they need, for that restores them to their true nature and original connecting. So gives them hope. In that state where connecting with each other is a conduit to their cosmic identity, All their problems will be resolved or dissolved by collaboration, co-creation, and cooperation. I think Alan Watts would like that.
Definitely.
Yeah. Um, I mean, there's so much in this chapter, but there's a couple more things I want to highlight before the end of our time, and I want to hear more from you. Um, it talks about how, they're meant to come together so that their complementarity, basically the polarization of opposites, the military on time, the always late, that's complementarity, which makes them incompatible, will generate conflict, and thus the opportunity for relational transformation and internal cohesion. So we go, well, isn't that wonderful that you are fighting about time? Yay. And then he says Imago dialogue is like a truck. When used appropriately and regularly, it can take any content to its destination.
Mm.
Um, and then they lay out, the perspective of the Imago therapist. And I just underlined this one sentence I thought was so amazing on page 235. Your skill is required when your passengers are on their best behavior in sessions and you can't see how they really feel. I just was like, wow. Yeah, how often are we dialoguing and we think, oh, this is going great, right? And then all of a sudden, you know? So, just knowing that we have to stay regulated, present, attuned, curious the whole time, even when things look like they're going well. That we don't just release the structure and get all willy-nilly,
Well,
like
and
what I
I
do.
hear that, Michelle. I also hear that, and maybe this isn't what they're saying, and I don't have the full context, but I also hear it as when there's a kind of polite civility,
Yeah.
but no very little affect, and they're kind of following it, but like they're trusting the process, but nothing's happening. It's just this kind of flat, it's flat.
Yeah. Yeah. And we can sense that, but that's where our skills really matter.
Mhm.
So then they go through a couple, just like bullet points on sort of the therapist mindset. And yeah, I'll just let you all read this. I was really fascinated by this concept of the Imago vortex. So this is 236. Imago therapists find doing Imago work is not just a job, it becomes a way of living. In a wonderful symmetry, the therapist finds himself evolving in the same direction as the clients they are helping. Clinicians report that the attitudes, philosophy, and practices associated with Imago seep into other realms of their lives. And we hear that over and over again. I thought I was coming to learn how to help couples, and instead I learned all about myself and how to help couples, right? But yeah, I love that they named it the Imago Vortex. And then one other thing I want to mention before we end, which is that they really explain that they want to move away from words like wounds and healing because it's so connected to the medical model. And instead, they want to replace it with challenges and transformation. And I was like, oh, that's important. I think I slip into speaking of childhood wounds and da da da, because honestly, symbiotic conscientiousness doesn't just like roll off the tongue, So thinking about, am I just talking about challenges and transformation? That's something that I took away from this chapter. And then they go into the relational paradigm and how it shows up in these therapeutic principles, of which they have 10. So I'm sure we could spend a lot more time, but let's just do a kind of what's on your mind today and what are your
If
thoughts?
if we don't do it now, I'd love to hear more about what Leslie said about going more into the lost, hidden, and denied parts, like as foundational before you get to things like behavior change requests and things like that.
Yeah, let's do that. Leslie, do you want to say more, or do you want me to add, or someone else to add?
Wow, that's such a big topic.
That's why I
Yeah.
said maybe we do it another time. I don't
It's a
know.
big topic.
Well, it's in characterological growth. So it's in that 3-day training, and they really deep dive. In the workshop, I use the loss functions dialogue for them to explore one repressive message and how that impacted their behavior. And so they can at least understand how they put away parts of themselves and then, of course, missed those parts. And so they were attracted to those parts in other people. They dated those parts, they married those parts, and then they proceeded to try to get rid of them again. Like, so that it's helpful for them to understand, okay, so I have lost parts. Some things are going to be hard for me to do for now. And it's the very thing that's going to help you transform your pain. This, if I can do this, it might help you know that you are worthy or you are, uh, you know, whatever, lovable or safe or the different needs we might have. Yeah, Leslie?
Yeah, like I think this idea that um often I find there are similar wounds in the partners in similar
Yeah,
childhood development stages, right?
yes,
And then they have these very opposite adaptations or stories that they create about what happened.
yeah,
And then they get messages from their environment also saying this behavior is good or not good. And you start to, and that's where that, luggage conversation comes in, right? Like,
mm-hmm,
where you start to pack up some of your parts and put them away. So for instance, maybe you hear, don't be so loud, or don't, move your body, or don't don't just dance in public. That's not okay. Or and some of the messages we get are are not obvious, but they're there. And so we start to adapt to that so we can stay connected.
mm-hmm,
So Maya calls them brilliant adaptations in childhood.
mm-hmm,
But meanwhile, part of our core energy is getting leaked out each time we pack up one of these parts and put them away.
mm-hmm.
And then we grow up and we marry people or we partner with people. We're mostly attracted to partners who have these other parts, that they're strong in these other parts where we are not, and vice versa.
That's right. So we theorize that the surgeon who's put away empathy married somebody with
Absolutely.
either a lot of
Oh,
empathy, maybe
has an
even
abundance of
too,
empathy.
right, too much that they actually aren't getting their own needs met. And the universe brought them together to learn from each other. And so that helps us just, if, yeah, it just helps
If,
us
if
work.
they can then stop demanding from the other
Yeah,
that they get these parts from each
right,
other, which they
right,
can't give, in that
right.
quote, that's a beautiful quote with the ha ha on the um,
Oh, well.
you know, if the partners can start to see this idea of, I can become a healing source to my
Yeah,
partner. I can help them
yes.
heal, and I'm going to say wound, because in that particular case, it doesn't quite sound right to me to say that challenge, you know, but
I get it. I think this is something to keep
because it,
talking about.
yeah. And then in doing that for my partner, I get to grow that part of myself. And
Yes.
that challenged part of myself gets stronger. And as that happens, my core energy starts to get restored a little at a time. And I become
Yeah.
more of the whole person I was always meant to be. And so,
Beautifully said, Leslie. I was just going to show you all this page. This is the page I think you're wanting, which is you can just put it into the BCR, but there's the receiving exploration. So if I were able to receive any of these gifts, how I might be different. And then there's the stretching. So the part of myself I may stretch into to give you any of these gifts, what might make it challenging, how you could support me, and then they decide. And then we have a surrender to love where they make some commitments and both own, how, like what might make it difficult that they both have unmet needs and hidden fears. So, I'll send this, but it just
please.
Got that.
the BCR is the most powerful dialogue, but if they don't understand what their unmet needs are, what their lost parts are, that their history is overlaying interpretations, then it's just too much. It's like a very advanced, it's like going to get your PhD when you didn't finish eighth grade. It's like too much.
That would be really a big jump.
Right, right. And so that's why the workshop's so critical, whether it's a keeping workshop, which goes really great, beautiful work into parts, whatever it is that they need that whole weekend to unpack all this before they're ready to explore the pattern and what they're both doing to create it. And the real stretch is to appreciate it, to say, yay, we have a problem. Wonder what's going to happen. Because I don't feel that way when my problems arise, But
What was the name of the dialogue you said you did earlier that you brought up or that
we
helps to,
Yeah, we did an appreciation dialogue. This was a new couple. I had never met them before, right? We did it start with appreciations and then we moved towards streaming tomorrow. So thinking about what might be possible for them in the next 2 weeks and what they can do to support that energy. So yeah, I mean, all this you start to see how they're all the dialogues are just different ways of getting to the same thing that Leslie just described.
yes, and earlier you used a particular name, and if I can go back to the recording later, but for a dialogue that you use to help couples see that there are lost, hidden, and denied parts of themselves.
Oh, the lost functions or
Lost
lost
function,
parts dialogue,
lost
yes, which is
parts dialogue.
yes, which Jill Wolfe wrote and is in this new book of dialogues.
Thank you.
Also, I want to show you the cards. The cards are ready and they'll be at the conference. The box says, "Is there more?" And we have conversation cards with instructions on how to listen and mirror.
That's
And
fantastic.
so that will be at the conference. I don't have a way to send these out yet because Costa Rica doesn't have mail, and but we'll see. We'll see how we can do that. But I will be there with boxes. If you are curious, you can come look at the cards and um yeah, so who else would like to say something before we close?
I want to say thank you and tell you that I have to go right this minute. I just
Okay,
looked at the
Bonnie.
time.
Okay.
Delightful to be with y'all, and I'll see conference people end of this month.
Yay! And I'll set some dates for next month.
That'd be
Yeah, and I just would love to say I'm so happy that Steve and Anna, I loved all the things you were sharing, and
Hmm.
I'm just so glad everybody comes. And because I love this, I think it's so rich.
Mhm.
I
Thank
Yeah,
you.
agree.
it was so nice being here with y'all and love the conversation.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. It was lovely. And I think just reminding myself, anyhow, that I can read it when I can read it. I'm listening to it. So when I walk, I sometimes listen. And I like that the narrator's voice reminds me of Harville's voice. So
Mm,
it feels like a very familiar voice. And that, so I listen a little more attentively, like Harville himself is teaching, which is just fine with me. And
aw.
Michelle, I have one quick question before we leave, which is, well, first of all, I love knowing way, way, way ahead, and I know you don't always, but that's how I could come to this one. So
Right.
if you
So
know when the
this,
next one is,
yeah, so the 7th or the 14th, do we have any? Anybody weighing in? Obviously, we want to avoid Thanksgiving.
For me, definitely the 14th. The 7th, we have our workshop.
Oh yeah.
Well, I can do.
Or the 14th.
Let's look at the 14th.
Yeah.
Does that work?
I can do that.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so the 14th, and it's always at noon Eastern for an hour and a half.
Okay.
And then for December, I think maybe the 5th or the 19th. Probably the 5th.
The
You tell us. I
15th.
can do either.
Okay,
Yeah, I have it down as the 5th.
great. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Great. It's on my calendar now, and I will make events for the Facebook group and all
Great.
of that. So, yeah, we're getting into the fun chapters, very practical.
I'm going to get back to reading more regularly. And then one last question is, do you have a copy, an updated copy that you might have written of the childhood visualization, which is underpinning in the workshop, the what we have been calling wounds?
Mhm.
I'm not sure I like challenges, but I'll figure out what works. But I get it. I just it's like unexpressed parts of self,
Right,
you
maybe
know?
ruptures,
Yeah,
childhood pain.
Rupture sounds great.
Yeah, yeah. But just to be aware that we want to think beyond the medical model,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know. But I
yeah.
like
Wounding.
ruptures because then there's repair.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, so yes, Anna, I mean it's in the keeping manual, that
yeah,
visualization, and then there might be a slightly different version for the getting workshop.
yeah. I just don't like the old version with the gendered and the parents and the. It feels very old, and I don't have a new version.
Mm. I'll look and email me so because I'm kind of distracted with the conference, but email me and I'll
Okay,
get back to you.
okay.
And
Do
don't stop emailing me if I drop the ball.
thank you for that
Yes, because
invitation.
you're important to me and I want to do it and I might do it right now, but just in case.
Gotcha, gotcha. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Michael, anything you want to say?
Thank you.
I'm so
Thank
glad
you.
you're here and I hope you get some rest and
Thanks.
recover from your trip. And then hopefully we get to hear as when you're more ready to share. Because it's like you're still metabolizing this trip, I'm sure, but we'd love to see pictures and all that.
Awesome. Thanks.
Okay, well, you all be safe, and I will
All
see you next month, if
right,
not
have fun at the
before.
conference, you guys. Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.